Before we do a question, before I get you to do a question, I think it is worth our while just having a 10-minute, quick, 5-minute, quick recap on share-based payments. Brutal. When I teach this, it's a half-hour, 45-minute, pretty heavy kind of introduction to the standard. So this 5-minute, 10-minute is just giving you a refresher of some of the key issues around share-based payments. The vast majority of payments a company makes are in cash. There is no problem measuring cash. You simply credit cash, debit wages, debit expenses, debit assets, whatever. Sometimes we issue shares themselves as a payment. So when we're buying another sub, we may actually credit share capital and debit the investment. And if you issue shares, shares should be recorded at fair value. So share-based payments is dealing with things which are based on shares. Now sometimes we make payments to our staff to give them synergy, to give them goal congruence, to give them motivation. We give them wages and remuneration in the form of things which are linked to the share price. So that if the share price goes up, then the staff members benefit. So it's a payment that is based on shares. It's not shares, but it's based on shares. And we give them to the staff to motivate the staff, to make the staff work harder, to tie them in so that they don't leave, and to generally create this goal congruence and happy culture. Technically, within the standard, there are two different types of share-based payment. Equity settled and cash settled. One will result in the issue of shares, and one will result in a payment of cash. If they are equity settled, then we are talking about options that are being issued. And options are an equity instrument. So we are creating both an expense and equity. We are creating both a P&L and an other components of equity. That's ultimately what we are doing. So if it's equity settled, it's options. If it's options to subscribe to the company's shares, you've issued an equity instrument. It's an expense that will be a credit to equity. If it is cash settled, then it's a share appreciation right. If it's a cash settled, then it's a share appreciation right. You're giving out the right for them to receive cash if the share price goes up. Now that basically is a liability. It is cash settled. Anything that you're going to settle in cash has to be thought of as a liability. So that's an expense that we charge at the P&L, and it's a liability. A liability is a liability is a liability. So, I mean, that's quite straightforward to me. Equity settled, cash settled. Now, the accounting, we need to value the option at the grant date. We need to value the option at the grant date, at the issue date. Just like you do with equity shares. With equity shares, you issue the equity share and the share capital doesn't change even if the share price goes up or down. So you value the option at the grant date, at the issue date. Whereas if it's a share appreciation right, we value the share appreciation right at the year-end value. At the year-end value. It's a liability, it is remeasured. Here, we will want to know the current estimate of the numbers that are going to qualify. Here, we will want to know the current estimate of the numbers to qualify. When you grant somebody some options, when you grant staff your options, you're normally a little bit devious. And you say, here are some options, but it's a carrot. And it's a carrot at the end of a pole. And they can't get the carrot, they can't get the options until they've been there 3 years. So they have a vesting period. So there are qualifying conditions. All right? If they leave, they don't get the carrot. They don't get the option. They only get the benefit if they stay the course. So they have to meet their service conditions. They have to meet their qualifying conditions. They might have to meet certain attendance requirements or sales targets. There may be performance conditions built into the process. So you've got to see an estimate of how many people and how many options they're entitled to, because this may vary, over time. People may leave, people may die, people may be underperforming, and if they're underperforming, they may not qualify under the service conditions for the options to vest. And then thirdly, we've got to spread. Thirdly, we've got to spread. Thirdly, we've got to spread. We've got to acknowledge the period of the benefit. Because if what's happening is we're giving staff a 3-year bonus, if the value of that bonus is 3 million, then logic would dictate that you charge $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. Yeah? So you've got to effectively understand that this is a pot of gold that is having to be spread over a period of time. Let me continue with the two sort of pages. If it is equity settled, then we're talking about the increase in the equity is the expense of the period. But if it's share-based payments, it's an increase in the liability is the expense of the period. So I tend to work out a closing balance. I tend to work out what is the equity that we need, or what is the liability that we need. Then you look at the brought forward, and so you get the increase. So this is a debit to the P&L and a credit to equity, a credit to other components of equity. This will be a debit to the P&L, and this will be a credit to liability. Are there tricks? Yes. Is there more to it than I have said? Yes. I'm giving you a quick recap of the basic issues. I would like you to have a go at a question. I hope I've given you enough of a refresher. Let me expose you to a question, or what could effectively be part of a 25-mark question. This is a question called Walter. This is on page 123. I need to give you some space. I need to give you an opportunity to think and then to begin to apply. So let me give you 5 minutes, please, to have a go, or to begin to tackle the question of Walter. I'll do the words and the numbers. but I want to give you a chance to think and apply.